Hi there. Welcome to Houston Baptist University's Psych 5310, Ethical and Professional Issues in Psychology and Counseling. Welcome to Module 5 now. We're covering Chapters 8 and 9 in this module. Chapter 8 deals with professional competence. So what is professional competence for a therapist? It's very important to understand and know the codes. Okay? When is it okay to refer? Can you get into trouble by referring someone to someone else because you don't feel competent? Make sure you read the chapter to understand this. People can get in trouble for referring. You need to understand the skills and the training that are required to effectively and appropriately treat clients in a specific area of practice. Some important questions to consider are, how do we assess competence? What are the ethical and legal standards? And is licensing an accurate and valid measure of competence? Just because you have a license, does that mean you are competent? Some ethical issues in training of therapists. Now, you're a student at Houston Baptist University. We're training you to become a therapist. So we have an important role in protecting the profession. So beyond your GRE scores or letters of recommendation, the application process actually seeks a comprehensive picture of you as a candidate. What are the tangibles? What are the intangibles? The assets that you bring to the table that maybe are not summarized in your transcripts and your letters of recommendation. So our program needs to provide potential students with information about the program, the coursework, the content, and other expectations. But in addition to assessing all your knowledge and skills, it's also important that we assess your personal and interpersonal competencies. For example, your capacity for self-awareness or self-reflection. Universities have the role of being a gatekeeper, promoting professional competence. If suddenly the field is full of incompetent counselors and they all came from HBU, that's not a good thing. We have an important role in protecting and making sure that the field is filled with competent and professionals who do a good job in their job. So licensure is just the beginning. If you're becoming an LPC, then you become an LPC associate first after you graduate. The same way with LSSPs. No school district is going to want you to work as an LSSP freely and unsupervised. They will watch closely during your first year as an LSSP. And then after you get your full license, your LPC license, your LSSP license, and so on, then you are constantly having to do CEUs, continuing education, for the life of your license. You cannot renew until showing that you have continued in your education to make sure that you're aware of any updates to the rules, the ethical codes. Who knew that telehealth was going to become such a big deal? But now a lot of people are taking training in how to perform telehealth for their clients and make sure they follow all of the ethical codes. In Chapter 9, after you graduate, you will have some sort of a supervision, or even while you're in your practicum and internship, you have supervision. So when you're being supervised, your supervisor is held liable for all the things that you say and do as a counselor. This is a huge liability to them. You do or say something irresponsible, and suddenly their license is also on the line. So it's very important that you have a good relationship with your supervisor, that you can be honest and open. You need to clearly state all of the roles and responsibilities of both the supervisor and the supervisee. The 4 main goals of clinical supervision would be, number 1, protect the welfare of clients. This is always the most important thing. Number 2, we want to make sure that the supervisee is growing and developing and that this is being promoted through the relationship. Also, we want to monitor the supervisee's performance and serve as a gatekeeper for the profession. Make sure that people do not actually advance into the profession if they're not going to be competent and do it well. And lastly, our job is to empower the supervisee to self-supervise and carry out these goals as an independent professional. Once you've been supervised by someone else, then each consecutive month or year, the supervisee needs to take more and more responsibility for self-supervision. And informed consent is also very important. You have to do both verbally and in writing so that everyone understands all of these things. And this is just a short list. There's much more. But the nature of the relationship should be discussed and be very clear to both persons. The expectations of each other. How does the supervisor generally run the supervision meetings? What's a standard that we're looking at for competence? What about online? Will it be live face-to-face, or will it be online? Will it be with others in a group supervision setting, or will it be one-on-one? How's the multicultural competence of the supervisor? How are the records supposed to be kept and preserved? Codes and standards of practice. Your supervisor should frequently visit the codes and standards of practice with you to make sure that you're always abiding by those codes. You can also understand dual relationships. If you had this supervisor in a different relationship, then what are those relationships and what's the power differential? Due process, what to do if you have a complaint, if you're not feeling good about something. There needs to be very open communication between the supervisor and the supervisee. How are you being evaluated by your supervisor? What about confidentiality? If you share something with your supervisor, are they restricted in what they can reveal to others? Vicarious liability just means that your supervisor's license is at risk for anything that you say or do. So they did nothing, but somehow or other the board might interpret that they should have addressed this issue before you actually went and did or said something irresponsible. Consultation, if you have a question outside and your supervisor has not answered it clearly, then you should seek consultation elsewhere. Same with your supervisor. If they're having trouble struggling with how to interact with you or how to rebuke you or help improve your performance, then they might be consulting with someone else. So who would they consult with? You need to know. And termination. How will termination of your actual relationship go? When will it be? Clearly through all the required hours, or if you need to terminate earlier, how would you do that? What's the advance notice that you need to give, and so on. So those are things that would be included in your informed consent. Again, as always, this is very far from comprehensive. The information is in the book. Please read it very carefully. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.